Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming from or wherever you're listening. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I am Roel and I'm here with Francois Vergès. How are you doing, Francois?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a busy week, right? So we're recording this on a Friday. It's been a crazy week for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's been crazy for me too. I've been working on the EU time being here in Canada. So I was waking up very early. But you know what? I like the fight of finishing around noon every day. So I had some time to do other work or to take care of different things at the house. So
yeah,
perfect.
Must have taken a while to adjust. That's a very different. Like it's not even near close to what time you wake up, right? It's like
no, yeah. The first day it's okay because I guess you're still kind of in your time zone. The second and third day, I would say, are the hardest one. By the fourth day, you're like, okay, whatever. It's time to wake up.
Well, you're getting used to it. I'm just getting used to being busy. I might have to do some work tomorrow on a Saturday, but just nature of the thing. I'll try to control it. But today we wanted to talk about the announcement that Cisco Meraki created. I mean, in our previous episode, we talked about the MIST AI certification, and Cisco Meraki came out with their own certification. I wouldn't say it's very similar, but I mean, it's a Meraki specific certification, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. Maybe I was thinking maybe COVID started all of this stuff. We've seen more and more online training and the programs to help people learn about different things. So maybe they decided it was a good time for them to come up with a Meraki specific certification.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's actually Meraki has been around for a long time, and it's the first time they came out with an official certification, official course for the solution.
Yeah, indeed, because I do know me being as a Meraki partner, there are some certifications on the partner side, but nothing like a certification you see from like a Cisco CCNA, for example, right? So these are this Meraki certification would fall alongside the traditional Cisco certifications, but very Meraki specific.
Yeah, so why don't we just dive into explaining, what it is, and then getting in a little bit more information about it.
Yeah, and then we can talk about what we think about the certification. Just exactly. Glancing at it, reading all the documents. What are our thoughts? So we'll provide that at the end.
So the name of the cert is Cisco Meraki Solutions Specialist Certification, ECMS. So that's the name they found for it. And I think it actually the ECMS stands for Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions.
Yeah, that's not confusing at all, right?
I like the name though, the Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions.
Yeah, so that's what the ECMS stands for, but they do call it this is what's confusing about it, is they do call it a Cisco Meraki Solutions Specialist Certification.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's, even if Meraki is mainly Wi-Fi, they do specify that the program is covering more than just Wi-Fi, right? So it's also covering, everything else they do in their portfolio,
right?
Even up to the cameras.
Yeah, they're smart cameras. Yeah. You're gonna have to know about smart cameras. We can, once we start talking about the blueprints, we'll talk about what should you even know about cameras? Because I've dealt with the cameras before. I would be curious as to what they would actually test you on regarding engineering a Meraki solution, and specifically the cameras. But it is everything in their portfolio, and it's not to say that they won't add any more in the future, right? Because they do have now these sensors. I'm not sure if the sensors are going to be included, but that could be part of engineering a Meraki solution, right? So it is more than Wi-Fi. You're going to dive into the switching, security. They've got SD-WAN, for example, which I honestly think it's just a button that you select. Wireless WAN as well. So there's a lot that they're going to cover in this ECMS.
Yeah, and then maybe we can go back to the to the details about what you'll be tested on during the exam. So the exam, they actually have an official exam that's called Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions ECMS, and the code for it is 500-220. I'm guessing you'll need that if you want to find it on person view.
Yep.
And it's 90 minutes long for the exam. So I'm guessing it would be like a typical Cisco exam.
Yep,
that
just
you'll take.
Just one single exam for this one. And this morning I did see that somebody passed this exam. They were a Cisco employee, so.
Oh, maybe yeah. So can you register for the exam already?
I'm guessing so. If that person passed, it looked like a Pearson VUE sheet that he shared online saying he had passed the exam. So I didn't check. I just assumed based on the result that somebody shared I saw it on LinkedIn.
Okay. Oh, so that's interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think something they did really well is coming up with some material so you can actually get ready to pass the exam.
Yes.
So I guess before we talk about all of the stuff they have available for us, maybe we can talk about the exam topics. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be a good start, and to figure out like what exactly would be covered in engineering a Cisco Meraki solution, right? Because I mean, I'll poke fun a little. It's a GUI, right? So people must be thinking, well, what exactly would you be tested on? Doesn't it just work? Isn't it supposed to be the Apple of wireless? The Apple
Really?
of networking? But
not sure. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I have seen it done incorrectly. Partly why I get some work is from Meraki solutions that have been done poorly. So I think the certification will actually help people get up to speed on what Meraki provides, the different solutions, and even how to configure or even design some of the different parts of their products. So diving into the blueprint, there are different sections here. The big one, I mean, they're in different chunks, right? You got a total of 4 domains. And so obviously you have to know what Cisco Meraki Cloud Management is. And some of that includes just the architecture, using the dashboard, licensing, and a lot of that is just required because you need to know that for using Meraki, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing if you just used to using the dashboard and working with Meraki, I'm guessing this would be pretty straightforward.
Yeah. This part should be a straightforward thing if you've already been working with Meraki quite a bit.
Then you have a section on design.
Yeah, that's already a good start, right? So talking about designing different products. So they've got their auto VPN. This line is funny to me because it's design scalable Meraki auto VPN architectures, because the word auto is in there, right? It shouldn't just do it for me.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know, maybe they're thinking about different solutions or, backup plans and redundancy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not quite auto, right? You still have to architect it in a way that makes it scalable. So there's that. And then it goes into the different products, like their MX line. Wireless is in there, although we don't know how in depth they are going to be with wireless, right? So other things too, such as like switching, network access. So it looks like not too much in depth on design, but it is 30% of the exam.
for the wireless piece of it, they do have high density wireless deployments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They have MR wireless networks for enterprise, MR wireless network for guest access.
Yeah. And that just says design. So they're not asking you in this portion here to
implement it,
although we haven't gotten to the implement section yet. But they're setting the stage here, right? So obviously if we talk about these, I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of implementation of these topics as well.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me is that it's not just wireless, right? It's even in the design piece of it, it's pretty much everything: VPN, switching, MDM,
routing.
What else do they have? Yeah, routing, pretty much everything, and wireless, of course.
Yeah, and I feel that because you are dealing mostly with a GUI, that it is fairly simple to mess it up, right? If you press the wrong button, it'll push that config from the cloud to your devices, and you could royally screw up.
Yeah. So I guess that part is still important, right?
Yeah. And maybe because they have the certification, it's not anymore for like a small, medium business. We're seeing larger companies implement Meraki into their networks.
And also I'm hoping that, you know that more than me, but we see a lot of bad Merakis because some default settings don't fully work in the enterprise space. So hopefully when they talk about different things here, different topics, hopefully they talk about those different use cases and how to set it up for the enterprise space.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this will help educate some of those people if they want to get certified, right?
Yeah. I know that whenever I see a Meraki network, I have like a to-do list of things to check first.
Yeah, same
like,
here.
This disable, this check, and then we start talking.
See, like this is the reason why maybe they are coming out with the education piece. They got some training that's coming out, and these topics that are going to be in the exam. So that's the design part. It's about 30%, one of the bigger chunks. And then the next section is implementation, which is about 25%. And you will go into configuring pretty much every component of every product of Meraki.
Yeah, and I really like this part of this program. And later on, we'll talk about the type of resources they have available for you to kind of study and get ready. And I actually like it. It's quite extensive. And yeah, apparently from what I could see is you can pretty much try and you can lab everything on your own.
Yeah. So obviously with the implementation part, there's going to be configuration. And that is a key word in this section of the exam where it says configuring MX security, the switches, the wireless, cameras. I guess people would start asking, well, if I don't have the equipment, how am I supposed to even learn how to configure this? So that's something we'll talk about in a bit, because there are ways that you could learn how to do the configuration. And Meraki does outline that as a resource. There's different resources you could use to try to, get ahead of this. But obviously if you have the equipment, this is going to be a lot more easier for you to do if you have every one of these product lines.
Yeah. So that's for the implementation, which is another 25%. So now we're at 15 plus 30 plus 25.
Oh, you're going to do math live.
60%.
You're going to make sure they
70%.
actually hit 100%.
That's 70%. So we have 30% left, and it's the 30% left is for monitoring and troubleshooting. So
yes,
here they talk about different monitoring, how to do different monitoring in Meraki, the different dashboard, different technologies, SNMP, syslog, NetFlow, and so on. And then they talk a little bit about the APIs, how to use the APIs to monitor and maintain some network. And they talk about firmware upgrade, and then they have a section on troubleshooting enterprise networks.
Yeah, that sounds like the biggest chunk of that section. Not so much the other three, right? I feel that troubleshooting is going to be the biggest aspect of Meraki because you are using a dashboard. you don't have as much visibility into what's going on. And so a lot of these say using the dashboard, right? Troubleshooting using the dashboard. And so you'll be able to learn as you go through the material, like how you should troubleshoot layer 2, layer 3, wireless, what to look for in that scenario. And then kind of go from there. I'd be curious as to what they would actually test you on.
Yeah, maybe they'll give you a couple of scenarios, or they show you an example of what happens in the dashboard, an issue, and they ask you, what's wrong, what's most likely to be wrong here, and then they give you options, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of wireless issues on some Meraki networks, and I use a dashboard sometimes, but it's one of those hit or miss, and I can see like where they're going to point you to on the dashboard to try to troubleshoot. But you're always seeing this from the AP's perspective, right? So it's things like that. You're seeing what has been configured on the dashboard, and if you just rely strictly on what Meraki gives you, you're just going to use one set of tools, right? One tool really to do your troubleshooting.
And also my take on this exam is that because it's the first one and it's very general, I'm guessing they're not going to have anything crazy in depth or any crazy advanced features. So I think it's going to be pretty easy even for the troubleshooting, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they don't go too much into API probably means because there's a DevNet certification. That's probably where you should go for API. But this is their first certification. I mean, they could expand this. I'm not sure. Who knows what they're thinking.
Yeah, so that's about the exam topics, objectives. What if we want to get ready? What if you're interested in actually getting some training to get ready to pass the exam? So Cisco actually came out with, 2 different training for that certifications. We have the first one that's called ECMS 1, Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions Part 1, which is a 1-day introduction to Meraki fundamentals training, I guess. And then they have a second one called the ECMS 2, so Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions Part 2. And this one is a 3-day deep dive into advanced Meraki technologies. I'm guessing this is really the one where you'll get your hands dirty and you maybe try out some labs and get to practice in the dashboard to get ready for the exam.
Yeah, and you're right. The first part is really introductory, and they do make a note saying if you have already taken CMNO, that they do not recommend that you enroll in that course. So this is the paid course from Cisco. The first part, it really is basic. It's kind of an introductory to Meraki, and it even says like who should enroll in this, and it says Meraki operators or people who would like to understand and use Meraki networking. And then the part 2 really is the meat of everything. So this is catered more towards the people deploying Meraki, your network admins, your engineers and other IT professionals. This is the course that they should really be enrolling to understand how Meraki works, and they will go into detail of things like routing and setting up your switches, firewalls, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about this one is the lab. So if you look at the description, we'll put the links in the show notes if you guys want to take a look at them, but they have like a list of maybe 20, 30 items for the lab. So I'm guessing you'll really spend some time in the dashboard, getting some stuff done and getting to practice a little bit Meraki, which is awesome, right? As an engineer, that's what you want when you go to training.
Yeah, it'd be nice to actually, it's a long list. It's good stuff. And it's worth trying this out in a lab because you want to try to break it and see what happens, right? And so when you break it, you want to know, well, how do I fix it if I've broken it and maybe lost my dashboard access, right? Maybe the dashboard can't communicate with your Meraki equipment. What do you do then? Like, this is a perfect place to do that. Yeah. And coming from the wireless perspective, I do like that they talk about RF profiles, using Air Marshal, things like that.
You have a wireless background? I didn't know.
I have a little bit. I've touched the RF profiles.
Yeah. So the course looks pretty good. I don't know the price. Do you know the price?
I don't know, but because I wasn't interested in taking the course, it's virtual right now, obviously. So they've got some. I'm actually going through the webpage. They have some upcoming sessions, and it still doesn't list a price. It's being provided by other partners. So like Global Knowledge, Fastlane, that's who's providing these classes. And so you'd be going through them to do it. So I can see that. I'm not even sure if the links work properly because it brought me to a completely different.
While you do that, I checked on Person View, and the exam is actually available, and you can take it as of today if you're doing it from home, and it costs $300 USD, which is not cheap.
It's a standard exam price.
Yeah, it's the same price as the missed one.
Yeah, interesting.
So interesting.
I'm going to assume the classes are going to be in the thousands, maybe over $3,000 for a instructor-led class like that. I don't know.
It says 3,495 on the page I'm on. So
yeah, and I think instructor-led's great if you need to have that interaction, and I don't know, maybe Clear Descent should do a like an e-learning on it. If we have time.
Yeah, that's the thing. If we have time.
But, if instructor-led's not your thing, or you don't have the funds, maybe you're doing this on your own. They do provide more resources if you want to take the self-study route. And I think that's primarily what I do. I take the self-study route. That one was most interesting to me. And what's nice is when you look at the self-study guide, they laid it out kind of like how the DevNet certifications were laid out. They give you the exam topics, and then they link to relevant study material that is available online. And so they do that for each section of the objectives. Now, granted, the self-study guide is not an in-depth guide. Like, this is everything you should use. Like, you shouldn't, they may be missing something is what I'm saying. They may not have every topic available online, but they do link out to what they have. And so if you click on that link,
it's impressive. Everything they have already listed in the resources.
And what it really is, though, is mainly their documentation. They have some videos, but a lot of it just links out to their documentation on their Meraki page, which shows you that this material has been around for quite a bit, right? It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to find it. But at least now here, if you want to look at licensing, they do link to that, right? They talk about the Meraki licensing models. It's there. And co-termination licensing. Now, if you don't have the equipment to do like the implementation part, there are some videos there. There's other guides that they list out, and also there are people who have videos on YouTube that do this as well. But for me, it's like, okay, I just want to be sure that this guy is teaching you the way that Meraki would want you to learn it, right? Because there's different ways you can configure these things. It's just you need to be sure it's done the way that Meraki. What would Meraki do is how I would question that.
Yeah, and if you have, especially if you're thinking of doing the exam, because they're gonna have Meraki questions, right? Meraki oriented questions. But if you do have a little bit of funds and you want to purchase some equipment, they actually came up with something pretty cool, which is like a full-on lab environment that they detail for you. And then they tell you exactly that they give you like a bill of material. First time I saw that actually. They give you a bill of material and they're like, okay, you should buy these equipment, which is an MX67, a Z3, an MS250, an MR33, and an MV12WE.
Yeah.
Which is the camera. And then they give you like network diagrams. They tell you how to connect everything. And then you have a series of a few labs, I guess.
Yeah.
Or they don't give you labs, but they tell you they give you guidance.
They tell you what to do.
Tasks to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like go and configure this or create this tag. set up auto VPN. So obviously, if you're going to do auto VPN, you need two security appliances. Yeah. And obviously that lab is not going to be cheap. If you have the funds, because you have to get the hardware plus the license, and the exam will test you on the advanced security license. So you would have to get that for your whole organization, your whole Meraki organization. I should probably list out how much this would cost. I am a Meraki partner, so I do have access to the pricing. I could show everyone how much this bill of materials is going to cost them.
That'd be interesting. Roughly, how much do you think it'll be? Like 10 grand?
I don't know. I think it can get close. If it's just MSRP pricing, without any discounts, because they are trying to give you the cheapest option here, except for the MS250. The MS250 is not a... They recommend that one because of the layer 3 routing and the PoE capability, because if you get a smaller switch like a 8-port switch, it may not have routing capabilities like layer 3 routing. So that's why they give you the bill of materials, and that switch is the one that has the asterisks on it, because it's a recommended model for layer 3 routing and PoE.
I'm thinking you could do the routing with the MX67, no?
You can do some.
Okay.
Most of the routing, most of the advanced configuration for routing is on the switches.
On the switches, okay. All right. Anyway, I thought it was pretty cool that they came up with this guide. We'll put links once again so you guys can take a look at them. But I really like the diagrams and the different things they came up with. It's nice.
Yeah, they have it set up in a way where you could configure this all yourself, along with the cabling. So they give you a logical topology, and then there's a topology with a wiring diagram, so you can replicate this yourself. Now, you can try to get away with some free equipment, I guess, if you do one of those webinars. I don't know if they still do that. It's just that this is all based on newer equipment, and typically on the webinar, they're giving out the older.
The older stuff, yeah. I mean, if the AP doesn't really matter, right? You could have an older AP, you could still do that.
Yeah, it's the same. I don't think the AP model matters so much, because it's the same features that you're going to see. It's just that the really old ones aren't going to support something like maybe WPA3. Because I bet you WPA3 will. I remember seeing a line item for that, for Wi-Fi security. But again, it's one of those things. It's a new exam, so we're not sure exactly how this is, but the documentation that they've laid out is pretty good. So they did put a lot of thought into this. I think it's a big investment if you're just going to decide that you want to take the certification, but you don't have access to the equipment. That's going to be the tough part.
I think people that would be interested in this one are either people who have been working with Meraki for a while, so they pretty much already know it, so they just want to have the certification to just say, okay, I know this stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe people that are like, let's say a network engineer that just supporting a network, and they just transition to Meraki and they want to have a better understanding of, on how to do everything. Then they could go through the training and then go for the certification.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm considering taking the exam. I'll probably do the self-study route. I have some of the equipment. I have I think I have an MX67. I just don't have a license for it anymore. So I just need to get a license for it. And I could talk about some of these. I have a switch. I have a camera. I just don't have the Z3. But I can probably get it as a partner. And then some of these, like the systems manager, you can get a trial for. You don't have to buy it. But I think you do have to buy it if you take longer than 30 days, because the trial is just for 30 days.
Yeah. And also you need a router with two little antennas. Do you have that at home?
I probably do somewhere.
You,
Says
you,
home
you
home
guys will get the
router.
joke if you see the diagram.
Yeah, the home router with the duckies on the top. It's funny. Like it's really showing you what a lab environment would look like at home.
Yeah, really. No, for sure.
It's just that
Well, if you
MS250 is a
take the
big
exam, let us
investment.
know. Maybe we can do a little follow up. You can let us know how it was. I'm sure you'll pass. Finger in the nose.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I don't like doing on Meraki, like routing, because I don't like using the GUI for routing. So I would have to brush up on that. But yeah, the MS250 is quite the investment, I think, for people. The PoE model, at least, just to try out the routing.
Lab.
But I do know that Meraki. So if you want to leverage, say, your employer, you could ask for a trial, right? A trial from Meraki and try to get equipment that way. But most of the time, the trial is for 2 weeks. And you could try to get it extended, but that's an alternative way to try to get a full stack. So if you were considering moving to Meraki and at the same time you wanted to get your certification, you have your bill of materials that you could ask a trial for, and Meraki would send you that equipment. Obviously, if you don't return it, they're going to charge you because they'll ask for your credit card up front. But that's one way to try to do a lab.
Kind of a POC.
What's that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a POC.
Oh yeah. It's a POC. That's exactly what it is. It's just a POC that is more in your control. So they'll just ship it to you. And I've done that for my customers where they wanted to try it out. So I've signed them up for a trial. I set it up for them to take a look at it and they go, okay, yeah, sure. Yes or no. I don't know if they'll make something like this available in the Sandbox because there's some things that I guess you can configure, but you won't see, right? Like the wireless stuff is kind of hard to validate whether or not it's working. You could probably do some switching and routing on the labs. And that's something that we can probably take a look and add that to the show notes, is if that is in the labs that's provided by the Sandbox from DevNet.
Yeah, I've never tried the Sandbox for Meraki stuff.
Yeah, I haven't really looked, but I believe they might have it. Let's see. Yeah, so they have a Meraki Always On lab, but I believe that's mainly for API.
Yeah,
most of the stuff is for API.
Stuff. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great for. It was mainly great for the DevNet stuff because you did use API on a Meraki lab, but with the Meraki lab, it just depends if they have that same exact topology in the lab, because some of these it's just a dashboard, but you can't configure anything. It's read only.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So there's one called the Meraki Enterprise Sandbox, and it's a developer environment used to experiment with the dashboard API, captive portal, MV Sense, WebAlert. So it doesn't really reference hardware. So maybe they'll create one. I'm not sure. But that would be, I think that would help make the exam more accessible to people. What else do you think about this exam?
Well, I'll be interested to see if you take the exam, how hard it would be. Like, where did they set the level for this one? Right? Is it just the first one, the introduction? I'm thinking of coming up with like a professional level, like you said, maybe a DevNet associated certifications. That's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing because it's the first one, it's kind of like the introduction, but they do call it specialist. So maybe usually when it's specialist, it's the second level, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So maybe it's kind of like intermediate in terms of level. But I think it's I like when the vendor come up with nice training program. Obviously I haven't been through their training, but 3-day deep dive into the advanced Meraki technologies, instructor led. I mean, it sounds like a pretty good options if you want to learn, learn about Meraki. I didn't see a tons of stuff on Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi basics, Wi-Fi fundamentals, like the Mr. One does. Maybe that's why it's just 3 days and not 4. So maybe you'll be missing that part. So maybe if you can couple that with like a CW, and it sounds like what I'm saying is it sounds like a very oriented, like, vendor training.
Yeah. It's very, I don't think you may learn some networking fundamentals here, especially when it comes to routing and switching, but this is very much heavily focused on Meraki, very Meraki specific. And I think it's worth getting it if this is what you do all the time, is Meraki Solutions. I mean, Meraki has a huge footprint, right? They've got a lot of customers. Like,
you want the numbers? I get the numbers.
You got the numbers? All right.
Yeah. 508,000 customers, 2.5 million active networks in more than 190 countries.
Yeah. See, there you go. I can see the value in having this certification as someone who has been certified and really understands how Meraki works and how it should be designed and implemented and knows how to troubleshoot, because it can get complex. I mean, Meraki has made it easy to use a GUI, but because it's a GUI, it's very easy to make a mistake. And if you don't know how things work, then it's going to be very difficult to troubleshoot, right? If you don't know how OSPF works and you made, a boo-boo on the dashboard, how do you know how to fix that? So I think
you'll know the network is down.
that's the only thing you'll know. So yeah, I think it's worth going for if you are going to be heavily using Meraki. And it's like any certification, right? Like there's a reason why I haven't gone after certain certification. I'm not using some of that equipment. So it's how you see it worth. And obviously it's new, so we'll see how this certification matures.
Yeah. And I think it's a good time for us to reference back to one episode we did together maybe a year ago. Oh my, 2 years ago now. And we did the Meraki Wi-Fi tips episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Remember that one?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys want to take a look at it, we kind of talk about the default stuff that we tend to change.
It's episode 144.
Episode 144. Yeah. We'll put a link in the show notes if you guys are interested to listen to that one as well.
And those tips I still use today, because I will go into an environment and I will see things that should not be configured for that environment, and I will change it. And usually that fixes the majority of the issues, right? It gets them into a better position, but just listen to that episode. Yeah.
We just teased. I wanted to talk about them, but I just let it there. So if you want to know more, you have to listen to 144. Sorry, guys. We've been pretty good at teasing, huh?
Yeah.
I guess 200 something episode.
Yeah. I think what it is we go through an episode and then we think about ideas for other episodes while we're recording. Yeah. But, we try. So, let us know what you guys think about this certification. Is this something?
Yeah, are you going to take it?
Yeah, are you guys going to take it?
That's what I want to know. Yeah.
Are you going to take it? Do you think it's worth it? And if you are, or if you have any comments, head over to the show notes, which is going to be cleartosend.net/241. And awesome. Yeah, that's it. I want to thank you guys for listening. Francois, you got anything coming up this week?
Just some site survey work in warehouses, which I'm really happy about. I love that. So I'll put my hard hat, my yellow vest, and my boots and get some work done.
Awesome. I got to create reports because I did finish a couple of surveys. So now I got to, every time I do a report, I figure out, okay, I need to change this in my template and do it this way, make it a little bit better. But yeah, that's what I'm working on this week.
Awesome. Awesome. Refining your template one project at a time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you found it useful and learned a little bit about the Cisco Meraki certification, the Meraki Solutions Specialist certification, or ECMS, Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions. Head over again to the show notes. It's episode 241, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you guys next week.